Live from the beautiful and new PS 958 in Sunset Park. I wish you were all here to see how gorgeous this building is. We have about 24 participants on the call. And before I would call the roll, I will invite the interpreters to introduce themselves. Could we have the Mandarin interpreter, please?
各位在线上的家长，如果你需要中文翻译，请拨打347-966-4114。打完这个号码之后，请拨打738-836-65，再加一个井号键，你就可以到中文的翻译线上。那我们有中文翻译。我再重复一遍，347-966-4114。打完这个号码之后，请拨打738-836-65，再加一个井号键，谢谢。Thank you.
All right, thank you. Could we have the Bangla interpreter, please?
Sure, thank you. শুভ সন্ধ্যা। আজকে যারা আপনারা এই মিটিংটি শুনছেন এবং আপনারা এই জুমের পাশাপাশি বাংলায় শুনতে চান, সেক্ষেত্রে আপনাদের ফোন থেকে ডায়াল করবেন 347-966-4114। আমি আবার বলছি, আপনার ফোন থেকে ডায়াল করবেন 347-966-4114 এবং কনফারেন্স আইডি চাইলে দিবে 862-309-253#। কনফারেন্স আইডিটি হবে 862-309-253#। আপনাদের যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে আপনারা চ্যাট বক্সে লিখতে পারেন অথবা আমাদের মাধ্যমে করতে পারেন। কোনো কিছু না বলে মিউট করে রাখবেন। ধন্যবাদ। থ্যাঙ্কস। বাংলা অ্যানাউন্সমেন্ট ইজ ডান।
All right, thank you. And could we have the Spanish interpretation, please?
Following announcement will be in Spanish. Buenas noches. Para participar en esta reunión, favor de marcar al 347-966-4114 con la clave la clave 609-241-401 con el señal de numeral. Repito, el teléfono 347-966-4114 con la clave 609-241-401 con el señal de numeral. Muchas gracias. Spanish complete. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I will turn it over to our secretary to read the roll call.
Thank you. Antonio Ferraro.
Here.
Leslie King.
Here.
Vanessa Gonzalez-Uelka.
She's going to be late. I know she's coming.
Nancy Cruz here. Donalda Chumney. Nancy Randall.
She'll be here. She's running late.
So not Hans Arieta. Lauren Barkin. Mamoon Rashid. Danley Vidal.
She sent in a note, a letter. She's not going to be present today.
So she has
She's absent. Yes.
Excused absence.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Davis.
Here.
And we have our high school council member, Annalie Diata. Are you here?
I don't see her on the call.
Okay. And we have also our high school council member. Oh, that's a vacant
It's vacant,
position.
so,
Okay. And with that, we have quorum, right? 1, 2, 3, 4,
We do not.
5. We do not have
We do
quorum.
not yet have quorum, but hopefully we will have quorum shortly. All right, I'm going to drop into the chat a link for everybody who is attending remotely to please sign the attendance sheet. And I'll turn it over to Leslie King to read the introduction.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to the District 15 Community Education Council tonight. We appreciate your time and we're glad you can join us. For those of you who are new to the CEC meetings, There are 32 CECs throughout the city, plus 4 citywide councils. Each CEC represents a community school district, and each is made up of 12 volunteer members, 10 of whom are elected by parents in the district, and the remaining members are appointed by the Brooklyn Borough President and 2 high school student members. CEC 15 is a state-mandated public body responsible for ensuring that public school parents and the public have input in educational decisions that are made at the school district level. Our council reviews education policies and advocates for high-quality education that benefit all of our school District 15 public elementary and middle school students. CEC 15 serves 36 elementary and middle schools and 1 high school under the oversight of our superintendent. CEC members serve in an advisory role on education matters to the district superintendent, the chancellor of the Department of Education, and the state and city elected officials. We approve district school zoning lines submitted by the Department of Education. We evaluate our district superintendent. We review the district's educational programs, and we support school leadership teams. We also submit recommendations for School Construction Authority Annual Capital Plan. And as of recent amendments to the law, CEC advised in the selection of parent coordinators. We actively seek input and feedback from our public and encourage you to visit our website, cecd15.org. Take a look at our Facebook page, connect with us on X, right? And write to us about any issues you may want to address or learn about. Each school has a CEC liaison. All of our names and contact information are available on our website. And don't forget to sign our attendance.
Thank you. All right, Jonathan, would you like to read the public comment protocol?
Tonight's calendar meeting and business meeting is in person and will include a public comment period. We will take both remote and in-person comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You may leave your camera on, or for your own privacy, if you prefer, you may use audio only during the comment period and throughout the meeting. Rules of engagement. When you comment, please comment on the topic. Respect the privacy of others, and please do not include names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand to comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. If you are attending in person, you must sign the guest attendance sheet and indicate whether you would like to comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed 1 minute each for comment. We will hear as many speakers as the time allows. It is possible that not every comment and/or question will be given time, so the best way to get your question answered is always to write to the CEC at cec15@schools.nyc.gov. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are each permitted 1 2-minute comment and/or question. If members do not have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Jonathan. I just want to make sure that everybody out there virtually is hearing us well. Could you somebody just put their thumb up if they're hearing us well out there? Okay, they can hear us, great. So this weekend, I had the great pleasure of attending the District 15 musical Annie at the Brooklyn High School for the Arts. It was an incredibly impressive performance. I understand that there may be a documentary being done about that, which is amazing. I really saw glimmers of like and rankings and Bernadette Peters and Carol Burnett's on the stage. This is just wonderful district-wide work that our superintendent's office does, and it's very important to our community building and mentoring across age groups and neighborhoods. These are the kinds of positive experiences that children take with them into the future. And when our council develops our budget for next year, I will be proposing that we create a line item just for District 15 events, student events of this kind. So hopefully we can help support those. I know that Neil really is scraping resources together to make these possible, so we want to support you in any way we can. Staff Appreciation Week is May 6th through 10th next month. Get ready to send some love to your school staff and teachers. The mayoral control report came out this week. I have this, here it is, all 281 pages. I have not read anything yet. I haven't read a page of it yet. But I understand that the primary recommendation is a task force be created to develop a new form of school governance. I understand from speaking with Senator Jabari Brisport that the legislature will have to approve such a task force by June 6th. Speaking for myself, I hope that this task force is created to explore a more democratic system of school governance. The majority of the speakers at the hearings did oppose the current state of mayoral control and supported some sort of change. But because it's unclear what that alternative would be, I think a commission is appropriate to study the way forward. And I will put in the chat the link to the report so that everybody can take a look at it. Since our last meeting, you may have also read about the recent changes announced to the Division of Teaching and Learning that oversees the Chancellor's Literacy Initiative. As you may have read, Deputy Chancellor Carolyn Quintana will be leaving at the end of the school year, and the division will be dismantled and the responsibilities transferred to the Division of School Leadership under Deputy Chancellor Dr. Danica Rux. The Chancellor had also suggested that the work would be dispersed across the various districts. So my question to you, Superintendent, tonight will be, what is the impact of the division of the dismantling of this division on our district office and our schools more broadly? I will put an article about this in the chat also for everybody to take a look at on their own time. Last 2 weeks ago, actually, at this point, on April 3rd, CEC 15 interviewed candidates for our vacancy. And I want to reiterate how impressive all of the candidates were. I want to thank Katina Rogers, Teresa Council, Jocelyn Bonadio de Freitas, Dana Ashley, and Yasmin Uday, who all eloquently answered questions for 2 hours. We will be voting later tonight to select one of them. I wish the council could offer a seat to each and every candidate, but unfortunately we must select one. And as always, I encourage everyone to stay involved in their schools and run for CEC in spring of 2025. Holidays coming up. April, this month, is National Arab American Heritage Month. I would like to briefly highlight an Arab American, Krista McAuliffe, who was a teacher and an astronaut who, if you remember, the sad Challenger mission in 1989 that crashed. Krista McAuliffe was of Lebanese descent. Other events coming up: Passover begins before sundown on Monday, April 22nd, and concludes after nightfall on April 30th. Another fun fact: Spring cleaning comes from the Jewish tradition to prepare the home for Passover. So get your brooms out for spring cleaning. May is National Jewish American Heritage Month and AAPI Month. So this will be an appropriate time for us to read out our hate speech resolution. And April is also Autism Awareness Month. This past Thursday, April 11th, the PEP, I attended, I listened to the PEP meeting, and they voted to approve new sites for 3 existing D75 schools in Queens in District 24, 29, and 30. And parents who spoke at the meeting lauded the new co-located sites. Across our city, there has long been a dire need for District 75 seats, as well as ASD Nest and Horizon seats, sensory exploration, education, and discovery, AKA the SEED pilot program, and PATH programs, so that children with special needs can attend schools in their own neighborhoods. I think D75 co-locations are the exception where co-location policy can make sense. D75 programs are often isolated, but co-locating them in buildings with gen ed schools creates the potential for inclusion, resource sharing, and collaboration between the schools. So I would challenge PTAs in those schools that are co-located with D75 programs to collaborate and advocate together. Something we also need are after-school programs staffed to meet the needs of students with IEPs. I have learned recently that many CBOs who provide these after-school programs often turn away students with special needs. And the CEC is working with a parent, Janet Marty, and our council member, Donalda Chumney, to understand the scope of this problem, and will be developing recommendations through a resolution. So tonight, I'm very happy to be here at PS 958, which is an inclusive school for children with special needs. This is a rare gem in New York City. From the inception, the school has been focused on inclusion. It was designed in response to the needs of the community, parents of special needs children who identified the injustice of having to bus their children out of the community. The design process incorporated feedback from groups like Visión Futuro. So I am pleased to introduce Principal Emily Shapiro to speak more about 958. If you wouldn't mind just coming down here and sit right here and right here.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining in person at our school. Welcome to PS 958, and thanks for joining online as well. And I want to second such an important point that Antonia made to all of the families who are attending school in a co-located school, that you take the extra step to reach out to the D75 program in your school and think about how you can collaborate, because you're so right. Even in a co-located school, those families are often isolated and not able to participate in the community. And I think parents can really help to bridge that gap. So thank you for bringing that up. And that is a big reason why our school is open. My name is Emily Shapiro. I'm the principal here and also the founder. And so we've been open for 2 years now, but before we opened, I was also a District 75 assistant principal, a para, a teacher, and a coach, all in District 75. And when Imagine Schools came around, we wrote a proposal for a fully inclusive school to try to bridge that exact gap that Antonia just highlighted. And we were really lucky that things lined up with Visión Futuro and the needs of the families, and we opened last year. And across grades 3K through grade 1, we have ICT programming, and then in kindergarten and up, we also have self-contained programming, including 1211 classes and the AIMS program, and that's a specialized program for children with a diagnosis of autism who are still learning how to functionally communicate. So it's a very intensive program, only 6 students in the class with a full-time speech therapist. And as a part of that program, our school also has a board-certified behavior analyst on staff who works with that program, but also supports our school more broadly. And so in the past 2 years, we've really built out a continuum of supports for students. So far, regardless of a student's need, if they live in Sunset Park and they're interested in going to our school, we've been able to offer every single family a seat. And in our first year, we had 60 students. Next year, we'll be up to 180, and we'll grow 1 grade every single year. And all of our students, those with special needs and those who do not have special needs, operate in a fully inclusive environment. So students have PE together, recess together, music together, and we also flexibly schedule students. So maybe a student needs more support in reading, but in math, they're ready to be in a bigger setting. That student has the opportunity to move around. So yeah, we're doing well now. We're looking forward to another year. And some events that we have coming up that I wanted to share. On June 8th, we're planning to have our block party. If you were there last year or you heard about it, it was a lot of fun. We are lucky enough to have this incredible mural that honors the indigenous communities of Sunset Park. And so we'll be honoring them again at our mural block party on June 8th. If you're in the neighborhood, you should visit. And if you're interested in the project-based learning work that you saw, maybe at the district fair or maybe at your child's school, and you want to see how it looks elsewhere, on June 12th, we'll be having our project-based learning celebration where we do cross-age, mixed ability project-based learning, where students get to move around the school, choose something that they're interested in, and explore it with peers who are also interested in that, even if that means they're from another class or another grade. So it's something really exciting that we've taken on, and that'll be June 12th, where we celebrate all of that and showcase everything that the students are working on. So if you're interested in that, come on by.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you guys.
So much.
Thank you.
All right, I think it's time for our superintendent, so come on down. This is Vanessa. Okay, so I should take it.
Good evening, everyone. We're just waiting for the PowerPoint to come on. Hope everyone's having a good evening. Nice weather for the past 2 days, so that's always something to look forward to. While we're waiting for the PowerPoint, I'm just going to start. As Antonia has talked about the celebrating and honoring in April, we want to celebrate soon to begin the Happy Passover. Eid Mubarak, which is the end of Ramadan, Arabic American Heritage Month. You can go to the next slide. National Poetry Month of the month of April, April Autism Month, and Earth Day that's going to happen on April 22nd. And as we think about looking forward on the next slide, in the month of May, we're focusing on Jewish American Heritage Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, Memorial Day, and then 3 other things. Happy Mother's Day to those who are mothers, and Happy Teacher Appreciation Day and Happy Principal Appreciation Day in the month of May. If we go to the next slide, I'm really going to talk a little bit about the district celebrations, some updates on the DCEP as it relates to some of the additional things that have been happening since I last shared in December, curriculum assessments that Deputy Lanzalao is going to talk about, upcoming events and workshops, and summarizing updates, and then opportunities for Q&A. So if we go to the next 2 slides, as you heard from our CEC president, Annie Jr. sold out April 12th and 13th. We were excited. Oh, let me go back. Leadership update first. Just so that you all are aware, Maria Interlandi, principal of 124, PS 124, has joined the team to be the multilingual learners director. She's not only going to be supporting 15, but she's also going to be supporting all the Brooklyn North districts. That's 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 23, and 32. As a replacement, our current supervising social worker, Valeria Osa, has taken place as the interim acting principal of PS 124. So that was that transition that actually happened yesterday. I was in conversation with them today. We were talking a lot about the students in temporary housing at the particular school and trying to address those needs from the community as the PTA requested the meeting. And we were able to meet with the different agencies as well as the different sub-agencies that support the agencies of DHS as well as DOE. And we were able to come up with some solutions and addressing some of the concerns that they had. So we're happy that that meeting happened today. And that was from your meeting in November where they requested the meeting. We finally were able to get all the agencies together to have those conversations today. So happy that happened. Next slide. Annie Jr., next slide. Sold out April 12th and 13th. Here were our two stars who both played Annie. I got to see both shows. I went on Friday and Saturday. I want to thank the CEC members who were able to participate and also the continuous support around these district-wide initiatives. And thank you for the offering for next year. That would be great in supporting. The families were ecstatic about this. They are going to have a celebration where they're going to be able to get the videos and things like that. Once we get those documentation, we'll share with the CEC to post as well. Amazing. I mean, I felt like I was on Broadway, and I was fortunate not to have to pay to go to this Broadway show, I have to tell you. But these students were amazing, the cast. But I also want to shout out the parents who were heavily involved in supporting the children, making sure that they got to the Brooklyn High School of the Arts. I want to thank Danny Vecchiano for hosting this particular event, but also sharing his resources. I also want to thank the 3 teachers who actually led this work across the district. We're expecting a bigger show next year, so we're really excited. We already have the dates and a location, because we wanted to make sure we got a bigger venue so that we have more families that could actually participate. And I want to thank Superintendent Janice Ross for being able to help provide that space within District 13 15 school district. Next slide. Just some visuals of some of that work. That was your cast right there in the top picture. On the bottom left is your cast as well as they closed out. Amazing work. I can't say much about it. Next slide. Can't say enough about it, I should say. Some of the students, as you all know, it wasn't just one school, it was representation of every single school in our district. And we had students from 3rd grade to 12th grade. And you couldn't tell the difference between who was more mature or not because they were all part of the cast and they really played the role really well. So we were excited about that. Next slide. Oh, by the way, I also want to include that even with the performance, one of the things that was a concern when I first got here was our school, the Brooklyn Children's School, which is under Superintendent Kettler-Lassant. And to Emily's point about working with D75 and working with the organization, we had 1 to 2 students who participated who were actually part of the show from Principal Rose Armato School. And we're looking forward to continuing that partnership with all the events that we're doing across the district to make sure that they're consistently included. So to that point, next slide. Really thinking about our Youth Equity Congress and their success with their poetry slam under the direction of Omar Graus, who's on our district team as the new diversity coordinator for this past year. We celebrated at PS10 where kids, in the next slide, they really highlighted a 5-part series that they were a part of to deconstruct the structure of poetry. Aiden Taylor, who is Me and My Afro, young author, was able to come and talk to the students to help deepen their own identities and establish a secure haven where they can share that through the use of poetry. And those monthly meetings were able to kind of enable students to apply what they've learned. And then that last celebration, which you saw in the previous pictures, was all about how they were showing their student voice, choice, and agency through the poetry that they created about themselves. And students got to perform that in front of other students across the district. So another opportunity for our students to interact with one another across the district. Next slide. Middle School 442 was at Tweed. They were shifting mindsets towards an anti-ableist culture. They participated in a lab event where students were showing their leadership around how they were actually engaging in this form of activism. And so it was great to see that the students were participating in that. Our next slide, where students were celebrating Eid. This particularly was Councilmember Shahana Hanif. You could see her on the left photo, second picture to the right, and our principal, Tina Hachimakalis, who's the principal of PS 131. So we're excited to see that. Next slide. I'm going to get into the district comprehensive educational plan, but before I start, I want you to note that I'm not going to go into every single detail. I'm going to give like 1 or 2 maximum examples of each one, but we will have copies for you. I think Deirdre at this point has put the PowerPoints in the chat that are also in multiple languages for our families to be able to follow. But if you go to the next slide. As you know, our district comprehensive education plan, which is kind of coordinated between the district office and the DLT, the district leadership team. It goes through priorities 1 through 5, which you can see here. Our 6 priorities, chronic absenteeism. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the points that we've done since December. And so if we go to the next slide. So as you can see, we're focusing on those foundational literacy skills development. And we're doing a lot of lessons learned from the job embedded coaching that's been happening and thinking about how do we revamp that in terms of professional development for next year. We're also building on the capacity of the core ELA instruction. So thinking about what that's going to look like for next school year. I know there's been a lot of conversation about the curriculum rollout, and we've really been taking into consideration what our district priorities are and what our philosophy is about learning and finding ways to incorporate those things within the curricula. So I know that the last time we talked, there was a concern that we were going to throw out project-based learning. That's not going anywhere. Every school leader knows that project-based learning has to be integrated into the curricula that we're doing. So we also, in this district, believe in the philosophy of independent reading opportunities. That's going to continue to exist within the curricula that's being presented. It's important to note that that 1 hour and 30-minute block, that 90-minute block, 1 hour and 30 minutes worth of literacy time is not the only time students learn to read. We have science, we have social studies, we also have other things that schools are doing. We have mathematics where you learn to read in math as well, right? Because there's language there, the academic vocabulary. So I want to be clear that while this is the set curricula for our school district, that there are other opportunities to engage in these particular aspects of the work. And project-based learning is certainly going to continue to be part of it because it's at the core of what I believe, but also at the core of what partnership we've created with the CEC to ensure that that continues to be something that's important to us as a district. And so I just want to be clear with that. If we go to the next slide. In terms of the math support, AIS support, we've been doing, we've been not only supporting all district schools with Tier 1, we've been supporting schools with targeted group sessions of support for schools that need more additional support in those particular areas. And we've also been customizing school support, for example, schools that may have changed curricula last year, or schools that are needing of support because they're a CSI school or getting out of CSI and still needing additional supports. As a result, we've been doing the continued tier approach. And I'm not going to go through them, but those are all the different ways that we've been providing the support. We've been also focusing between benchmarks, which schools we're starting to see that there might be drop, not enough growth, and focusing on how do we support those particular schools. And the parental engagement, based on what we're seeing in our data, we're now informing our decisions of what parent workshops we're going to provide to support parents with what schools may or may not be struggling with. And so if we go to the next slide. Supportive environment. I'm not going to go through this one because these are the key strategies we focused on, and there was a lot of things that we've been doing. For example, school counselors in middle school, high schools, your Tier 1 classrooms and the lunch groups. We've been using collaborative problem series that started back in January 22nd. We have the OEWUS bullying vendor who's training coaches at the middle school and high school levels to support schools with struggling. That started in March. Next slide. And some of the next steps we're doing, creating more visibility of support at our schools with SEL, helping schools overcoming obstacles by using our Youth Equity Congress, right? We have our mitigating trauma grant that we've used to support social workers and guidance counselors on better supporting their schools with grief or with any type of trauma that students are facing. We're focusing on mitigating suspensions and addressing the gaps with suspensions and supporting schools that are struggling with students who might be at a relative high risk ratio. For example, if we have a smaller number of Black students, but there are a higher number of suspensions, why that is. And so at the district level, that's not on here, we've been having meetings. For example, today we met with 3 schools where our numbers are a little high and we're wondering why are those numbers high. And together in collaboration with the school leader, we've been identifying what those things are, and then coming up with an action plan to address those gaps so that we can reduce those things and be able to support the families in a different way. And so we do those meetings monthly. We also do advanced meetings in terms of how to give feedback on to teachers so that they're improving their practices. If we go to the next slide. In terms of math, we've been building capacity on the core math instruction. Most of our schools, if not all, are already implementing illustrative math, which is really a conceptual understanding in mathematics and mathematical concepts and building knowledge. Where a lot of schools are interacting more. I'll give an example of Dewey 136. As they've been engaging in this work, students are now, as I go into classrooms, are more engaged in their mathematical thinking and their processing, which is actually engaging them more in class. As a result, we've been able to reduce the number of incidences that are happening in the school because kids are more engaged in the instructional aspect of the classroom. These are just some ideas, some things that we are actually doing as a district to support in mathematics. We've also been focusing on how are we addressing our high school students, right? So we have 2 high schools that are at a high graduation rate. And one of the things that we're focusing on is where is there areas to improve, particularly for students who have been marginalized in those schools. And so as we've been looking deeper into the data, we're recognizing that, for example, the college ratio index is not as high as we expect. So that means kids are passing the Algebra 1 well, but when they're getting to trigonometry and others, they're not doing as well. So they're meeting the graduation requirements and graduation rate, but we're not preparing those kids fully for college readiness, right? And so we've been working with our high schools, but going even further, since a lot of our middle schools are offering the Algebra 1 course, we've been now making a coordination between our high schools and our middle schools to think about how are we providing more supports around this math area to reduce the disproportionality amongst our most marginalized kids and closing those gaps so that when they go to our high schools, they're performing better. We're not going to be able to mitigate all of that because students are coming from different districts when they go to high school, but at the very least, we can actually address some of that with the students of ours that are staying in our high schools. And so that's something that we're working on. In our next slide. That's a little bit of what your college and career readiness is showing here, but we have 2 events here, and one of them is our STEM exploration, that's on May 18th. We've been telling you about that. Students will meet NYU professors and people who work in science and math to learn more about careers in STEM. That's going to be at Governor's Island, where students in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade will participate. And then we have our parent symposium and learning together. And just as a caveat to that, tomorrow we have that parent district leadership committee meeting, and at that meeting, just to give you an exposure of what's going on, something like the parent symposium, we as a district have to find better ways of integrating the organizations that already exist, such as the President's Council, the CEC, and DLT, and find ways to use those organizations to make collaborative shared decision-making in our district. We haven't been great at that. We have to do better at that. And so tomorrow's conversation is a lead to how we're going to ask for those teams and figure out how we can use those teams to even further advance our parent symposium and further advance many of the events that we're trying to do next year in partnership, so that it's not the district putting it together, but it's these different constituencies together to move that particular work. Another aspect that we were thinking about is when you're thinking about the PA and PTAs, there have been a lot from the President's Council about being able to put funds together. We're going to be thinking tomorrow some unique ways of how that can still happen, even though there are guardrails to how we're supposed to spend money as PA PTAs. For example, if we're doing joint events with PA PTAs, then monies can be split in that way versus if you do your own event and then want to share funding. Does that make sense? So we want to have conversations about that, and that's going to be part of tomorrow's meeting. I know many of you are invited from CEC, as well as President's Council members and other parents that are part of the high school community, as we know. We've been getting a lot of good feedback from Renee, so we definitely looking forward to that conversation tomorrow. But we're doing things. Art Showcase, Day of Service. We've been doing Day of Service. We did it with our district team, but we also did it with students. My goal is that next year we're doing it along all partners, so that CEC members, along with superintendent's team, along with President's Council and students, are showing a unique effort to support our community with City Harvest in providing back to the community, right? And so looking at more ways that we are actually doing things collaboratively together. Next slide. And that goes to some of the things in parent engagement. We've continued to use the DOE messaging system, which gets out messages a lot faster to our community. We are continuing the NISCA account signups to achieve 85%. We're at 84% as April 1st, and our goal was 85%, so we're only 1% away. I'm confident that we're going to get above that 85%, but we still got to push, right? And then schedule additional workshops. So we've added more workshops as a result of what parents wanted. So you all know that on April 9th, the data to inform instruction with the screeners came on again. Now there's going to be another PD, Budget 101, how to review and understand the school's budget so that parents have a more informed understanding of how the budgets work and actually be able to use that in conversations at SLTs or even one-to-one with a school leader if necessary. But trying to create opportunities for more collaboration, partnership, and transparency from what we can do, right? To continue to raise awareness about our workshops and family spaces, that the spaces are available, and we do have 2 satellite spaces. This 958 happens to be one of those satellite spaces that families can go to. 51 is another location. And continue the partnership with the Family Leadership, the Family Leadership Institute to have the remaining 20% of the new parents going through that workshop so that they can build their leadership at their school community. Next slide. Chronic absenteeism. We've been making some great strides. I just want to share that our attendance as of the 12th is at 92.7. The city's average is at 89.7. Chronic absenteeism rate is down 3% from this time last year. And last year, our biggest concern was our Black boys. While we were at a high 92, 93% attendance rate last year, our Black boys were at 80%. So to me, that wasn't enough. That means we were failing our Black students. And as again, one of my goals is to close the disproportionality in our district and close the achievement gap. This year, so far, our Black boys are up from 80% to actually 90% as a district in terms of where they are with attendance, which means we reduced chronic absenteeism for our Black students, particularly our Black boys, and it's up by 10%, which means what we're doing is on it. Still not enough. 90% is still not enough, right? That's still below the 92% we want to be as a district, but it is a 10% gain for those Black boys, and we're proud of the work that we're doing. Part of it is my craziness of harassing schools, and but it's also the schools that are doing their job of looking at more creative ways. We've been utilizing the attendance teachers differently as a result, right? Just 2 weeks ago, we sent the attendance teachers to all of our temporary housing locations to address all of our students in temporary housing families to provide support in figuring out what they need. As a result of that push for attendance with our STH students, we had increase in attendance in that very 1 week alone. And since then we've had, and I can get information on that. It was just emailed to me today, so I have a little bit of points of data that I can probably provide at a later time. I'm sure one of you will ask for that information. Next slide. Next slide. All right. Nicole's really going to talk about the purposeful assessments to drive instruction for HMH and Wit and Wisdom. I know this is something that was brought up last month, and we wanted to make sure that there was clarity on the information, where I know that they talked about, last month there was a little bit of talk about how the assessments, there was over-assessing for the curricula. We just want to show how the correct information about what's being shared, and Nicole's going to do that sharing. So.
Thank you so much, Superintendent. I don't know about you all, but I get excited hearing all of the accomplishments and all of the work that we've done and all that is ahead. I feel like, I don't know, butterflies when I look at all of the work put together, because I know how hard our team and our schools have been working. So hopefully you're getting a sense of that as well, as our superintendent presented. We decided this evening to share a little bit about how our district is engaging in the work around assessments related to HMH and Wit and Wisdom. Last month, some questions came up around the assessments, the assessment practices, and how these practices inform instruction, and also wanting to ensure that assessments are not taking away from instruction, but they're being used to inform instruction. So we want to talk a little bit about what that means. We know that learning is not stagnant, right? Student learning is fluid. So throughout a lesson, throughout a week, throughout a unit, throughout a module, students are gaining new knowledge, they're applying that knowledge, they're developing skills, they're learning new content, and they're gaining conceptual understanding. And throughout every single day, every single lesson, students may come across gaps. they may come across moments where there's a misunderstanding, right? Or a skill that is not fully developed. And it's the teacher's responsibility to create opportunities to formatively assess student learning and misunderstanding throughout a lesson. And so this visual we put together, right, it is fluid, right? The assessments, as our superintendent says often, assessments drive instruction, right? The curriculum is a tool, right? And the curriculum creates a leveled playing field where there are standards, there are specific skills that are taught, there are activities and opportunities for differentiation, and there's also assessments built in. And you can go to the next slide. We want to talk about the difference between formative and summative, right? And this is an image that we love at good old 131 Livingston. Our team, we always come back to this image around, when the chef tastes the soup, right? When the chef tastes the soup, that's the opportunity for the teacher to dig into student understanding, right? When the guest tastes the soup, it is too late. If the soup isn't good, if the soup is salty, if the soup does not hit the mark, right? If the student does not meet grade level standards, if the students do not achieve the skills that they need to achieve, we have failed. Students have not failed. We as the educators and leaders have failed. And so when we look at HMH, when we look at wit and wisdom, we are very critical in terms of how we are going to integrate those assessments throughout instruction. The menu of options and assessments that both of these curricular programs provide, again, will not be implemented as if they are a script. And so we're going to go to the next slide and show you a little bit about what that means. Many of the assessments in both of the curricular programs, as I said, are formative. Some of these assessments are literally a stop and jot that take students 2 minutes, right, to demonstrate their understanding and demonstrate their learning. Some of these assessments are Socratic seminars. Some of these assessments are turn-in talks. Some of these assessments are quizzes. Some assessments are exit tickets or entrance tickets. So there's a variety, a diversity of assessments that support teachers, right, in using these assessments to inform instruction. As a district, our expectation is that small group instruction, station teaching, learning centers, right, collaboration among students is alive and well this year and beyond. And that means that students across all diverse needs, skills, languages, cultures will be able to access the curriculum and also be able to have teachers pay attention to their needs along the way. So when we talk about assessments, you can go to the next slide, we are using the assessments that are built into the curriculum, right, as our benchmark opportunities to support our students. And so we're providing in this PowerPoint deck 2 documents that'll be at the end of the slides. And both of those documents go through in one single model, for example, right, which could be 6 weeks, it could be in one single module, which could be 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, it depends. You'll be able to see and track the assessments that students will experience. Once again, our district with our school leaders, we're creating a map, right, and a suggested sort of template as to how these assessments will be integrated. And so we wanted to be really clear on, there's a focus question in the task, right? And that happens 3 to 6 times per module. So we want to be clear that when some families, teachers, educators see this information, that they're not seeing it as this exact script fits into this neat little box, right? That's not the way we approach teaching and learning. Next slide. The same thing is true for HMH, right? There are weekly assessments. There are assessments that are embedded throughout a module. There are assessments that are embedded throughout a specific lesson, right? And I've already given some examples around what that could look like, where they're assessing, a student's comprehension or vocabulary or ability to master and demonstrate competency in a specific skill. Next slide. This is the HMH opportunities for assessment, and you can see we broke it down. These are the suggested amount of assessments per module that HMH recommends. And then the number of minutes, right, that these assessments would take, right, ideally or typically. Next slide. This is really important because what we did here is we broke down, there's 2 specific documents that really go into the curricular design around assessments, the backwards planning, and how the assessments are aligned to a module and lesson, but not how they are the all be all. They're not the, again, it's not a script, and not all assessments in the curricular programs will be used in every single class, right? Not all of these assessments will be necessary. And I think that's also to the superintendent's point last month, right? We were talking about the different needs of districts, the different needs of schools, the different needs of a class, right? The different needs of grades. So these assessments are not necessary for all classes, though these assessments provide a guide for our teachers so that we can ensure the gap is being closed across the district in a more strategic and intentional way. Next slide. So I'm going to stop there. Please do look at those 2 links. If you have additional questions, you can always reach out to us, and upcoming events and workshops.
So you can move to the next slide. We have 2 major events that are happening district-wide outside of the June date for the parent symposium. We have the STEM Exploration Day, which is on May 18th, and then we have our recognition ceremony that's going to be honoring different constituencies, particularly our school nurses, school secretaries, paraprofessionals, school-based support teams, and community coordinators or associates this particular year. Last year, we celebrated others. We want to make sure we do due diligence of celebrating all that are in our school communities. Our next slide. This is the Parent Symposium, is our second one. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about this particular Parent Symposium and figuring out how we can collectively work together to make this a success. Last year, it was at Dewey/Sunset Park Prep. This year, we're doing it at PS 32 at 420 Union Street. Next slide. This is our parent workshop, so that you're aware. There's a barcode on here, and it's also in the other languages in the other rooms, and they also do provide other languages during the actual workshops. This workshop is from 10 to 11 on Tuesday, May 14th, and this is really how to view and understand the school budget, Budget 101. We're going to have Larita Moy, who's the budget director for District 15, Ruth Rodriguez, who's a principal from PS 896 in Sunset Park, and then Danny Vecchiano, who's the principal of Brooklyn High School of the Arts, who's also going to be part of that meeting to discuss budgeting and what budgeting looks like and the different nuances about budgeting with the support of Larita. And then our next slide. Summarizing, just really quick updates. If you go to the next slide, it will be released tomorrow, Wednesday, on April 17th. Summarizing results will be released on My Schools. Families on My Schools accounts will receive emails on a rolling basis starting on the 17th throughout the morning through the afternoon. So if you got one in the morning and a family's like, I didn't get one yet, it's going to be rolling out because it's a citywide thing. For families without My Schools accounts, schools should provide offer letters to them. That will happen through the parent coordinators at the schools. If you have received an offer, you have until May 8th to accept. On May 9th, your seat's going to be given to somebody who's on the wait list. So it's imperative that when you receive the offer, you accept the offer immediately. If the family accepts the offer, but then receives an offer from a wait list, if the initial offer was not their first choice, they have 3 calendar days to accept or decline the actual offer. Please note that not all families who submitted applications will receive offers, as seats are limited, and we know that. There will be families that are placed on the wait list, and then there are families that will get the acceptance letter, accept, and when the first day of summer school comes, won't attend. And that opens up the seats, and families will always be called from the school leaders at the schools, and they always ensure that these seats are filled with families that do want to attend if, in fact, that actually happens. Next slide. Busing. Same transportation services they were assigned during the school year. Busing provides to eligible students attending summer school. Busing is available from 8 to 3, with 3 p.m. being the latest pickup time for students who require busing. Students with 12-month IEPs who received special transportation during the school year will be placed on curb to school bus routes, and students receiving yellow bus services will be assigned to stop based on the summer school DBN to which the student is registered to. Metro cards will also be available for students enrolled in summer school programs based on the summer class OPT code assignment and their distance from the summer site. Schools must pre-register students who require transportation by May 13th. The ATS function will open up April 18th, and after May 13th, the screen entries for summer school may result in routing delays for students during the first week of summer school if it's not entered on time. So I will be dealing with this with our school leaders. We will have conversations. Memos already went out. We've already put it in our principals hub, and other reminders will be sent to principals to consistently remind them, because we know that this is important for our school community. Next slide. These are the summer school sites. On this list, I know you've seen this ad nauseum, but right now you also have the assistant principals who are in charge of supporting the principals in charge for summer school for this particular summer of 2024-25 school year. And next slide. Questions? Answers? John?
Yeah. So we will now take questions. Begin with folks who are joining us on Zoom. If there's anybody who has a comment or question, if you can either put it in the chat or raise your hand. There was a question earlier about if there's a link handy for the Budget 101 session.
Yes, Deirdre or Nicole, if you could just throw that in the chat for the parent to access the link to the thing. It is in the PowerPoints though, and in the slides that you see from Deirdre Keys and Kaibat, CEC PowerPoints for April 16th are there. So you should be able to click on that there, and there's a scan code which will actually get you to the link for the PD session. But we'll put the link there as well shortly. That I think is for Katiana Rogers.
Any other questions from people joining us remotely? Anybody on the translation lines?
No, in Mandarin, no.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing on the Spanish line.
Okay, if there are no questions
nothing in
remotely,
Bangla
I'll
line.
move to in person. Is there anybody in the bleachers here who has a question for the superintendent? Just too comprehensive. So if there are no questions, let's move to CEC questions or comments. Hans, we'll start over there. Nancy?
Sure, go ahead, Nancy.
So the first thing I wanted to understand, did I understand correctly that you mentioned that the kids who are passing the algebra regions are not necessarily successful going forward in like trigonometry and the next levels
No,
of
what we're
math?
seeing is that there may be less students that are eventually taking some of the other math classes that are not necessarily the requirement. What's happening then when they go to college and do entry exams, they may not necessarily be ready for the entry exams, which requires them to take remedial classes as well.
Okay,
So
that's
like,
because there's 2 years of mandated math.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, and there's a
So
third
it's
year
not
that you
that
can
they're
take
not-
as an option. The other aspect of that is that for the college readiness index, if a child receives an 85 on the exam, that to the college means you're college ready. If you receive lower than an 85, then that's not considered college ready, so they'll have you take that entrance exam for that math. If you pass it, fine, but if you don't, then that would require you to take the remedial classes, which are courses, 3 credit courses that you're paying for, that you're actually non-credit courses, right? So that's what happens to a lot of students not being college ready, even though they're graduation ready for our high schools.
Because it's not mandated,
Correct.
right? Oh, it's not that they're taking it and then they're not doing it.
No.
Okay, all right. And then the other thing I just had a quick question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's about the STA, you were talking about the black male
Yeah.
student. But then you switched over to the STH, like you said you solved, so you went from 80% to 90%
Yes.
black male students? But was that because they weren't STH students?
No, that was a separate, where I was trying to address both things, where we have our black boys who have actually made gains. Not necessarily all the black boys are in STH in our district.
What was it attributed to, the successful?
The success for the, because we're, like, as I said earlier, we're addressing them directly. So remember how I talked about when I'm going to schools visiting and asking questions about marginalized populations? This also became the conversation when I was going to schools talking to principals about, and what are you doing about your black boys for attendance? Neil Singh on our team, which you heard about earlier, who does the events, he's also our district attendance coordinator. So he is feverishly having conversations every day when he sees that. So on a weekly basis, I can see, for example, on my board, which schools are falling below 90. Neil, we need to address those schools, having conversations. No, there's not one particular thing, because all schools are trying different things. The idea is to try to get schools to try things they weren't trying before. So we would go in there with the team and say, okay, what are you doing? What's working? What's not working? Here are some suggestions of other things you can do. Things like a walking school bus, where there might be school aides that are paid to walk kids to school from a particular housing area or a particular neighborhood area. Things like identifying, is Johnny not coming to school because he has 3 siblings and one of them is a 1-year-old, and when it's raining, mom is not going to bring a 1-year-old outside? How do we address that? Things like not having an alarm clock, and do we need to purchase as a school the alarm clock to help this child remember to get up, and or do we have to make phone calls to do a reminder for some of the families who might have parents who work overnight or might have other variables? And so things are little nuances for individualized students. Yes, it's very specific. Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's the root cause analysis of what's going on. Yeah. Yeah.
Leslie? I had one question. So it's related to the rollout of the new literacy plans and programs. I was really excited this afternoon. I went to PS230's SLT meeting and learned that 2 of the assistant principals will be presenting at the Adult Equity Congress on Thursday with a plan to create a spreadsheet of culture responsive text for both Wit and Wisdom and HMH that can really help support teachers across the district to ensure that the texts are culture responsive, because the current program in and of itself doesn't meet those standards. So my question is, how can the district, so once this spreadsheet is created and developed, you know, how can the district support this so it's not just on a few of the administrators and leaders to maintain and disperse? And
that's a great segue to what's happening. So as a district, school leaders are starting to create clusters of support for each other. So in our district, for example, when principals come to principals conferences, a lot of it's going to schools to seeing those practices I shared last month, right? One of the things that the principals ask for is if we can go to cohorts with leaders that are dealing with it, not only the same curricula, but some of the same concerns. And so Maria Del Region at 2:30 also happens to be a part with Wanda, who's here, Tina Hatch-McCallis, who's at 131, Ruth Rodriguez, all those that are part of this, and they've actually been creating that collectively. So each of them have already been sharing resources. Now, Christina Gonzalez, who presented last month, has already been doing HMH for the past 3 to 4 years almost now, and Wanda has also been doing that. So they've already been sharing their culturally responsive books and text already. So that's how Maria School is also collecting that. I think what Maria is doing is making sure that our community is aware that we're being culturally responsive to the community. So it's a great point to bring that up. And thank you for bringing that up, because now I can highlight the fact that the schools are working collaboratively to do exactly what you're talking about, so that it's not one school that has to do it. For Wit and Wisdom, Joanna Cohen has already started that curricula. She's already shared the trade book text for the entire district. We're actually working on trying to see if we can get vendors to if we buy books collectively, for example, to address those trades, if we can get discounted costs for the books. And we've been successful at doing that. We're just waiting for the list.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Could we go back to the progress update on the literacy, the district literacy goal?
Shanice, can you go back to, I think, the slide where it says priority ELA support?
My question is around the data that was shared of student progress in February, that 63% of students were meeting benchmark as of February. And I want desperately to believe that the significant amount of effort required to do these curricular transitions is going to pay off. I just would love to know what the benchmark data is for students who are currently experiencing HMH and wisdom, and what the data is for students who are experiencing a version of ELA curricula that is not one of those.
Okay.
Because so much of education intervention has demonstrated to us, especially in the past 20 years in the standards and accountability movement, that the juice really isn't worth the squeeze. You know, we implemented Danielson really hard for 5 years, and the effect size was 0.1% on student achievement. It was a tremendous amount of adult effort aligned that did not pay off. And so if the district at this current time, as of late February, has the 63% kids meeting literacy benchmark for that expected time period, what does the data look like for HMH pilot schools? What does it look like for Witten Wisdom pilot schools, as compared to people who are just doing the thing that they've now been sort of told, you won't be doing that anymore? Can you get that data to us?
Yeah, let me just make sure I'm getting exactly what you're asking for, because you're saying the pilot schools, but for example, HMH has been done at Christina Gonzalez's school for the past 3 years. So what you're saying is the schools that have been implementing this at least for a year. Is that correct? Because all the schools are going to be doing pilot now, so some of them have started in January, some are starting in May because of testing, but ultimately what I can get, for example, Joanna Cohen's school, 107, has been doing Witten Wisdom all year long. So what I'm assuming is you're asking for somebody who's maybe started since September, showing what the results are as of the February, middle of the year screener data to determine who's on or above grade level, and then and then also growth. Because I think proficiency or growth are two separate things, and I think that those are good measures to identify if we're making impact or not, according to your question.
They are, and proficiency being the coin of the realm for all kinds of educational opportunity.
I would agree with that, except that when students are at a low level 1, to move them to a level 3 is a significant challenge. And then also what I would also say is that it depends on which community as well, in terms of resources and where kids are. We can get that information. That's going to be easy information to get, but that's also something to play into the conversation, because a movement at 107 might look slightly different for a movement at another school in my district, based on what other mitigating factors there are that are impacting a student or impeding a student's ability to perform. For example, chronic absenteeism in one school, if it's a lot higher than another school, that might change. So that's why I say I wanted to, if it's okay, I can share with you proficiency, but I would also like to share with you growth as well.
I think that sounds great. I think that it's just, I understand, I'm on the school leadership team as well, so I understand that everyone's piloting a unit or two. I mean, since the beginning of the year.
Okay,
So what do these students' year-over-year data look like? And I understand that tests change and student populations change, and we're not comparing cohort to cohort, but it does seem like we would need something really powerful in terms of data to show that this new set of curricula, with all of the adjustments that are going to be need to be made for it, and all the energy that goes into implementing it, is really going to pay off for kids before I think any human being in New York City who is critically thinking about this could actually get behind this as significant an investment as it is.
Yeah, I definitely can.
Millions and millions of dollars and staff hours and everything like that. Like, it just doesn't really, it doesn't connect with me yet, and I just need to see numbers, especially if we're talking about progress monitoring. Like, we actually need to see data to be able to monitor.
Yep, I definitely can get you that information. I'll also make one more statement about that, is to also remember, and you as an educator know this, that when you're implementing anything new, it takes 1 to 3 years to actually see that impact in effect. So I can get that data, you're gonna have it. It'll show 1 year, but it's not gonna show, it's actually not even gonna show 1 year, to be honest. It's only gonna show half a year. From September to February is a very short time to see. I think that this is something that the end of the year would also be able to provide, and I can also get that once that comes about. That'll probably be the July CEC meeting that I can share that information. But I just want to caveat with the fact that we have a lot of variables here. The data we'll be able to get to you. You can use that to your discretion as to what you feel is worth doing or not as a city, which is your.
I understand that none of us are driving that bus, so I'm curious.
All right, we'll get that information, of course. Yeah, Lauren?
If only we were all driving that bus. But I had a question sort of along the same lines. I was really happy to hear about, the double commitment to project-based learning. So what I was really curious about in terms of the literacy curriculum rollout and piloting is in thinking about the professional learning supports that are going to be available to school leaders and to coaches and to teachers. Well, first of all, like what will that look like for all schools for next year? And then specifically around project-based learning, like how much guidance can be embedded in that professional learning to demonstrate how you can, and maybe some of the schools that are currently doing this and doing project-based learning well can talk about this too, but you know, both Wit and Wisdom and HMH are so robust, right? You to teach a lesson in each of them takes the full amount of time that they require. So just curious about like how to provide that guidance to teachers and to school leaders around like how you can morph and adjust to fit that.
What I'll do for that part of the question is I'll bring some school leaders that are already doing that, who have already been implementing that for the past year, 2 years, or even 3 years, and showing how they're going about implementing the project-based learning, because obviously every school participates in our PBL fair, and every year we're asking them to add even another unit and another unit and another unit to show more expansiveness around the project-based learning. All school leaders and assistant principals have been trained in that. We've been training a lot of our coaches as well as teachers across our schools at the district level to support with PBL, which is going to be moved now to teachers. In the past 2 years, we did principals, APs. This year, we focused on teacher leaders across schools or coaches to continue to push that work within the area that they're coaching. Please note that project-based learning is not just in ELA as well. We also see project-based learning happening in math. And in our science classes and our social studies classes, so it's seen all around. In terms of the first question that you had, which was around how do we see, can you just?
It's about professional.
The professional learning. Professional learning has been going on this year already. So we've been doing a lot of professional learning about what it means to implement this curriculum. Schools are working on professional development plans, for example, on May 1st when they're meeting with us. They're bringing a sample of their PD plan for next year in alignment to the curriculum rollout. It's a draft because they're going to be working with their colleagues to give each other feedback on how to think about different ideas and different ways that they're doing this. So to your point, Jonathan, earlier, those principals are coming together to come up with creative plans. What's also happening as a result of that is some school leaders are saying, since we're going to be doing the same curricular, why don't we share resources and funding so that one school that can't afford to pay for their own professional development can now put their funds with other schools and be able to create professional development that they're getting from a vendor that they can all share collectively together. So an example of that is you're a school, I'm a school, you're 230, I'm PS1, we have PS94 together. We're going to put our resources together to do professional learning, whether it's virtually or send all of our teachers on a Monday to actually get that PD together collectively. Schools are already doing that now. An example of that is 295, PS10, and 107. That's already starting to put their resources together around professional development for Wit and Wisdom. A lot of schools are doing that. At the district level, we're already putting out a PL series for next school year to provide support for teachers throughout the summer and into next year with the resources we have in terms of the people that we have on our team. It's our AIS people who are going to be doing some work around the foundations and the Heggerty and the PAF work that's going on and geodes. We just worked with NYU to get a grant to be able to provide training on geodes alone, which are the decodables in the Wit and Wisdom program that we're going to be able to utilize at the district with NYU, in partnership with NYU, to do that professional development. And we plan to actually have more PL series based on the school's needs. What we're cognizant about is that this past year we did so many PDs that the school leaders have said, can you slow down a little bit? And so we're now taking their lead from getting what they need and creating professional learning around the needs of the school leaders so that we can actually make impact in that way. And that doesn't take away from the individual school targeted support that's based on data where we're seeing there's trends that are happening that we need to have more resources there or support there.
The last, yeah, the plug I would make also in terms of family support for the new literacy curriculum choices that are being made is really just like some front-facing, I'm sure you're already planning for this, but front-facing meetings with families to really explain like the changes that have happened and also to explain that this does not equal no more project-based learning.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because there are parent workshops that are being designed to help parents with that. We did provide the strategic plan last month that had in 4 languages, but it's not just enough to give the document. We also talked about having parents go through the document, asking their questions so that they can be more knowledgeable of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. You will see in that strategic plan, there is a section around project-based learning, because that's not going away. And so I think emphasizing what you're saying is what we need to do more with our families to be able to do that. And yeah, right. So that's stuff that we're going to be working on and be able to present. So there will be a calendar. So we gave the strategic plan already in a PDF. We're also creating something that's going to be given out on that June 8th day for the Parent Symposium Day, where it's going to be a bounded strategic plan, but then there will be an addendum. And in the addendum itself, we'll have all the dates that are going to be available for workshops throughout the summer and throughout the year for parents to be able to attend, to actually engage in that process that you're talking about now.
A little bit about how they're implemented with wisdom in schools that are multilingual, or where students have, like, what are the resources that?
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why we went with the 2 curricula. And that was a suggestion made by the principal's advisory to ensure, at least for the very least, the schools that have bilingual Spanish programs, that curricula be the one there. The reason why is because many of the schools that have that language also have another language. So for example, 94 has Chinese, 896 have Chinese. Those schools had already been transferring the translations for the HMH program at their individual schools already. So that was one of the reasons why we went with the 2 curricula as opposed to the 1, and that was our appeal to the city to say we need to have 2, and this is why. We have the largest number of L's in Brooklyn. We need to focus on how do we provide the same instruction. It's going to be a lot more time to translate stuff. Some of these don't get translated. How do we do that? And so that's one of the reasons why we have the HMH, and so a lot of those schools are doing the HMH as a result of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just had that question.
Can you read it back to me?
Yeah. So the impact on our district and our schools at large
Yeah.
from the dismantling of the division of teaching.
So from my perspective, it's still not dismantled. So they are providing supports across the district. And from what I see, and I don't know yet because they're still developing it, I would assume that there's going to be some form of teaching and learning that's going to still support schools under the School of Leader, under the Deputy Chancellor for Leadership, right? But what I can say is that we've created a strong, robust team on the district level that we're able to depend on one another at the district level to be able to provide the supports that we're providing to our schools. Usually what my team of the ELA people are getting are some of the resources from the central level. I would imagine that that is still going to exist in some format, so they'll still be able to get their targeted supports. But a lot of the professional learning that we're giving as a district are coming from the district level. In addition to that, as a phase 2 district, we are supposed to be receiving another instructional coach that the phase 1 districts got to provide professional development to individual schools for support around that. And the expectation is they will get that. Depending on what Central does, because those employees would have to go somewhere, I would imagine that I might assume maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 staff members from the central level, if that's what happens when with this. If it doesn't, then we still know that we're going to get the resources from Central that we've already currently have now. If it doesn't, those people will be on the team, which will be the added resource anyway. So I don't see this impacting our schools directly at this point.
So there's a possibility of our district offices being more staffed.
Probably more staff to provide the more schools that we have. I've been arguing I need more staff anyway, right? Because we are stretched thin on our team. We've been making it work because we're very smart at doing cross-functionality, where we're teaching people how to do things that are not necessarily in their job title so that they learn how to support in other ways. We've created district points so that there's a more through way of support to individual schools. And we've been training our people through cross-functionality at our weekly Monday cut meetings, which are check-in, updates, and planning. During that time, leaders are learning how to do other functionality. So for example, you might learn how to help a school make corrections to a compliance thing as it relates to special ed. And now you're able to go back to your school and help them figure out how to do that, as opposed to just the one person for 41 schools, if that makes sense. So we're creating a lot of capacity in our district to sustain it long term.
Leslie?
Yes.
So how will for the schools, going from the curriculum, what works, and then taking that into the new curriculum, how will that transition?
Yeah, so that's good. Again, as I stated before, and I keep reiterating this, that the curriculum is a tool, not a script, right? And I'm going to continue to say that. And assessments drive instruction. So when we get data, the data tells us some of the things we have to do. Those resources and tools that are provided through the curricula are going to be used to support small group instruction and other things that students are doing. So I don't see it as moving too far away from what we've currently been doing. School leaders have already been looking at the curricula, assessing the different components of it, and identifying how that fits to what they've been doing. That's why we've been spending the entire year doing that work with our school leaders. That's why now they've been working on developing how they're going to roll out based on where people are. You would imagine that in our district, we have people in different places. We have Christina Gonzalez, who's been doing HMH 3 years. We have Wanda, who's been doing it for 2 years, right? 3 years, right? But then there are some schools, it's gonna be their first year. So they've looked at what that is and what they're doing and figuring out how this fits to some of what they've been doing, but still aligning to what this is asking them to do, right? And then thinking about, when I do small group instruction, when kids are getting in smaller groups, what are we doing differently to address the needs of those students? Because the whole idea of small group instruction is to move a little bit away from what's happening for the regular curricular, because that's how you address the gaps that students are facing. So, for example, if you're on a, let's say you're getting details to support a claim, right? You're getting evidence to support a claim, right? And that might be a 4th grade or a 5th grade standard in reading. And you're struggling with that. What's the thing that I need to be able to do in order to be able to do that work? So in a small group, I might pull you to do something slightly different that supports getting you to that still standard that we're trying to address today, right? And they're going to do that in different ways. There are going to be some tactile learners. There are going to be other students who are struggling. I also need to remind people, like, students have IEPs. Their IEPs dictate some of the things that we're going to do to support them. And so there are going to be adjustments, but the adjustments are going to be based on the need of the student. There has to be clear indication as to what those needs are in order to be able to address them, right? And so just bringing that to light are some of the things. There are different types of learners. You have tactile learners, you have kinesthetic learners, you have visual learners, you have auditory learners. There's a difference in the particular needs of what kids need in order to be able to be successful. And it's our job as educators to figure out what those things are to support. No one curricula, everyone knows this. There's not one curricula that will address every kid's needs. And so it's the job of the educator to figure out, okay, when this isn't working, what do I need to add to support this kid so that it works for them, right? And so that's what I'm expecting for our district.
Nancy Randall, I think you were at one of, do you have any questions? That's it?
All right.
Thank you.
No problem.
Now, we'll have our Brooklyn North report from Deborah. That was a tough act to follow.
Thank you, Ms. Shanice. Favorite person. Oh, good evening, everyone. So, sorry, I'm a little tired. We had a long principals meeting today up in Manhattan. Shanice, you can advance. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, so today I just wanted to give you guys some highlights on our goal around parent and community involvement. Next slide, please. So one of the things, it's funny, someone asked me today, how long have I been with Brooklyn North High Schools? And it's kind of like crazy, right? Like I said, a little over a year, because we've all just kind of existed in this configuration a little over a year. But really proud of the work that we've been doing, engaging our families. high schools are a little different, right? We're 7 districts, we're 27,000 families, and our parents don't come to school and read books with their kids. So we've been thinking a lot this year, having spent a year together, about different events that would be purposeful and useful. So we opened the year with a back to school summit with Superintendent Ross and our team. In February, we hosted the Black Studies Bookmobile, which I hear is making its way back to Brooklyn, so I'll let you guys know when it comes back. In March, we hosted a resource fair for our newly arrived families. And this we did on a Saturday because during the Family Leadership Summit, one of the feedback that we got from our parent leaders was to kind of alternate doing things in evenings and weekends because everyone has different schedules. So we attempted that. Our resource fair was on a Saturday. And then most recently, we hosted a workshop on Autism Acceptance Day. And Shanice, when you refreshed the deck, we recorded the session because there were some CEC members that were interested but weren't able to attend. So when Shanice sends out the deck, there will be a link to the recording. And this we did in an evening. Coming up, we have May 18th is going to be a busy day across the city. We are having our first STEM fair, where each Brooklyn North High School will be showcasing a science, technology, engineering project. That will be fun. And then we also are having a SUNY College Fair on May 22nd, where we have, I believe we have all 40 SUNY organizations coming out. Will be a Boys and Girls High School. So very excited for this work and engaging with our families in different ways. Next slide, please. And we kind of did a little audit of, we talk about welcoming and affirming a lot, and we talk about the pedagogy of critical love and how your impression of an organization really starts when you walk in the door. So we did a little audit of our schools to see if I were a new family looking at the school, what's the space that welcomes me? And that was really fun for us. And our parent coordinators worked so hard, and we love them very much, and they were very proud to show off their good work this year. Next slide, please. Some data, it's a time of year where attendance tend to start dipping, so we are, just like Raphael and his team, spending a lot of time in our schools that are below 90% attendance, really going almost kid by kid to motivate, to investigate why kids are having trouble getting to school and hoping to keep our attendance rates up. We are starting all the exams, the NYSA SLAT, the AP exams, leading up to Regents, and really hoping to keep kids engaged so that they'll be ready for their summative assessments. Next slide, please. And then just some news from 3 of our schools. Every month, our parent coordinators put out a digest where they feature fun things that are going on in their schools. Always lots going on at John Jay campus, and DTech. Cheryl Fox, who I believe has been a parent coordinator for as long as parent coordinators have existed, is one of our leaders in this work. Next slide, please. And that is all I have for you. On our website is information about the SUNY Fair, which I should send to Raphael. He's looking at me like, why haven't you sent it to me? So I will send that to you so your schools can register if they're interested. And then there's a link to our district digest in case you have time to learn more about what's going on in our schools. That is all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from people joining us on Zoom? questions. Okay, it doesn't look like there are questions on Zoom right now. Anybody in the audience, which is mostly the D15 superintendent's office?
Go US.
Yeah, go US. Okay, you got a cheering section over there. Let's move to CEC questions and comments. We'll start over. You're taking a bite of pizza. Okay. Antonia?
No, thank you, Brad. I'll just add that next month. Did you already say that when I stepped out?
I did not, but I probably should.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, say it so they can all hear it.
yeah, we're super excited to be hosting the CEC next month at Sunset Park High School.
So we really want our district 15 families to see everything that our district has to offer, and hopefully we can cobble together some sort of a student presentation.
Yes, they're very excited to show off.
Cool, cool. Thank you.
Vanessa?
Thank you.
Lauren?
Question for you. I noticed that some of those high schools had one had 24% of students who were living in temporary housing or insecure housing. And I'm wondering what percentage of newest New Yorker students are captured in that population? And to what extent, like we're seeing a lot of news articles about, families getting 60-day letters, and there was an article in City and State yesterday about 1 in 5 children in New York City being impacted by this, the mayor's idea that kids need to change schools every 60 days, and our chancellor's co-signing of that as a policy move. It seems in direct competition with the goals that we have to maintain accreditation with the state. So to what extent are you seeing kids getting moved around, or, is that touching this community? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, so it's hard to kind of disaggregate the data to know which of our students in temporary housing are also newest New Yorkers. But I would say from a bigger picture perspective, it's more our schools in District 32, in District 13, like it's where they're opening the HERC shelters. I would say for our District 15 schools, because blessings, most of our schools are fully enrolled. I know Cobble Hill has seen an influx of newer families, and Ms. Rodriguez has done an amazing job just kind of bringing everything to bear to support her families. We have seen an influx of families in 13, and I think over the weekend it was not announced, but it was uncovered that they've opened yet another HERC shelter in that neighborhood. So we're continuing to support our schools with that. District 32, especially the Bushwick campus, we have received, happily and lovingly, received a lot of families. A lot of our kids stay. I think that it's different, like with high school kids, when they're embraced in the community, they keep coming because they can navigate the buses or the trains. One situation that is unique to high schools, and it happened at John Jay campus, was we are getting students who are being treated as adults in the HERC system. So we had, thank goodness for our principals who somehow magically know every single kid. We got a call from one of our principals that 2 of her students were being evicted because they got a 30-day letter because they were being treated as men. They were in a men's shelter and not a family shelter. And I have to say shout out to Project Open Arms, and not to make more work for Tamara Meyer, but you guys really should have her come and present because they are a 2-woman team, Tamara, and they are phenomenal. So we just started making phone calls, and we're able to advocate for these students to not be evicted. And then we ended up finding them because Project Open Arms got involved, we were able to get both students into a better situation and they stayed in school. So for us, it really is like, it all goes back to this whole welcoming and affirming thing. Our attendance person, our leader and heart of the attendance work, Terrence Paulin, always says, attendance is about creating environments where kids want to come to school, and then when they show up, you keep them with great curriculum, with amazing teaching, with them knowing that if they're getting evicted from the shelter, the person they call is their principal. So it's kind of a different spin on the issue.
Thank you for that infusion of encouragement around this really difficult policy situation.
Thank you, as always, for everything.
Of course.
Leslie?
Yeah.
Hi.
And Nancy Cruz? Nancy Randall?
Thank you.
Hans?
Thank you, CEC.
Thank you. Is Project Open Arms part of DOE or
Yes.
is that a separate?
Well, it's a mix, yes.
Okay.
There's representatives from the DOE that work with the mayor's office, but they are a really good team to, when you're having issues, that they really do support in trying to address those issues. You is correct.
I'd love to have him come to a meeting and talk about, present him. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm back. The next thing on our agenda is we have some amendments to our bylaws. Those amendments have to be read out in 2 calendar meetings before they can be voted on. So, Vanessa, you ready? I can share them on my screen. Hold on. And Shanice, you're gonna share the document on the screen in person, right? What do the council members prefer? There are quite a few amendments.
Do you need us to stay for this?
I
Sure.
think you guys can.
Okay, just want to make sure.
No.
To the very end tonight.
I'll drive you home next week.
So I have shared my screen with the working drafts. There are quite a few amendments. What do the council members prefer? A full read or just the amendments?
Just the amendments?
Just the
For the
amendments?
sake of time?
Everyone is okay with reading just the amendments? Oh, yes. Any objections to that? Okay, all right. Okay, so I will turn it over to you, Vanessa, to read all of the amendments, including anything that has been struck.
Section, I'm gonna start with Article 1, no amendments, Article 2, Section 3.1, President. I've stricken out the portion, subsection F. The president will retain a printed copy of the transfer records guidebook until the end of their term as president, at which time the book will be returned to the AA. That portion has been taken up.
Do you want to explain why that?
Sure, really quick. We did not feel like having a printed copy of all the records for agendas or businesses conducted by the CEC was necessary, since these records are transferred electronically. And this is also kept by the AAA. I'll move on to the next section, 3.5. We discussed in more detail the role of the parliamentarian. 3.5A, the parliamentarian shall fulfill the following goals. 1, protect the rights of individuals, minorities, the body, absentees, and all CEC members as a single body. 2, dispose of issues in a quick and orderly fashion. And 3, enable the majority to make official determinations. Oh, and 4, prevent community board members from discussing more than one motion at a time. So simply breaking it up a little bit more to keep some order. Let me move on to section 2. Member attendance at meetings on Article 3. So we added a more organized, more bylaws formatted version of the resolution that we passed back at the end of 2023 regarding hybrid meetings and how this will be conducted. So we reorganized this section a bit to show for what CEC members' expectations are when it comes to being physically present and when it comes to be present in hybrid meetings. Section 2A says that CEC members shall be physically present at the scheduled calendar and working business meetings unless such member is unable to be physically present at one of the designated public meeting locations due to extraordinary circumstances. B, for the purposes of these procedures, the terms extraordinary circumstances include disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or any other significant or unexpected factor or event that precludes the member's physical attendance at such meeting. Hybrid meetings. C, if a member is unable to be physically present at one of the designated council meetings due to extraordinary circumstances, and if there is a quorum of members participating at the physical location or locations open to the public, the council may properly convene a meeting. D, to properly convene a meeting, a quorum of members must vote in person to proceed as a hybrid meeting. A member who is participating from a remote location shall not count towards a quorum to proceed with a vote for a hybrid meeting. E, except in the case of executive sessions, any member attending by video conferencing shall ensure that they can be heard, seen, and identified while the meeting is being conducted, including but not limited to any motions, proposals, resolutions, and any other matter formally discussed or voted upon. Such members must ensure that their full first and last name appears on the video conferencing screen. F, the minutes of the meetings involving video conferencing based on extraordinary circumstances shall include which, if any, members participated by video conferencing from a private location due to such extraordinary circumstances. G, the public notice for the meeting shall inform the public of 1, that the extraordinary circumstances video conferencing will or may be used. 2, where the public can view and or participate in such meeting. 3, where required documents and records will be posted or available. And 4, the physical location for the meeting where the public can attend. H, the council shall provide that each open portion of any meeting conducted using extraordinary circumstances video conferencing shall be recorded, and such recordings posted or linked on the council's website within 5 business days following the meeting, and shall remain available for a minimum of 5 years thereafter. Such recordings shall be transcribed upon request. I, if members of the council are authorized to participate by video conferencing from a private location due to extraordinary circumstances, the council shall provide the opportunity for members of the public to view such meeting by video and to participate in proceedings by video conferencing in real time where the public comment or participation is authorized. The council shall ensure that where extraordinary circumstances video conferencing is used, it authorizes the same public participation or testimony as in-person participation or testimony. Absences, we made one small change, I think, yes. So instead of requiring 72 hours of notifying the AA about a potential absence, we reduced that amount of time to 24 hours. So absences, section J, except in an emergency, members shall notify the president and the AA at least 24 hours prior to schedule a meeting of their intent to be absent. However, such notification shall not in and of itself constitute an excused absence. On section K and other subsections that had any citations to the law, this have been moved as a footnotes, just for clarity, which occur on section K. Absences, yeah, subsection K, quoting New York State Education Law, subsection 2590. Section 3, annual meeting. We did not change anything. We simply pointed out that we might want to discuss whether to keep the second Tuesday of July as the last meeting of the year for CEC, and these discussions have occurred
No,
throughout
that would be the first meeting of the year.
the first meeting, I
Yeah.
apologize, the first meeting of the year, to appoint officers to the council. We have had these conversations, and I believe the general consensus is that we can keep it, but at times this might need to be evaluated on an as necessary or as needed, just because of the timing of the year is tricky with summer plans and things like of that nature. Let me see if there are any other amendments. Okay. The next amendment will be Article 4, Conduct of Business at Meetings. And we added in, let me check, an introduction to the format of the meeting. Unless otherwise specified, the format of the meeting of the CEC 15 shall be as follows. Only one person presiding, chairing the meeting, has the authority to yield the floor to a member of the council or a guest. Each member who has the floor may speak uninterrupted for 2 minutes. All members of the council shall respect the member of the council or guest who has the floor. And all other procedural details not specifically mentioned in the CEC bylaws shall be deferred to the Robert's Rules of Order. There are no amendments until section 2.d, in which we reduce the amount of time given to a speaker from 2 minutes to 1 minute, which the parliamentarian has power to extend when he so feels appropriate. So this says speaking time is limited to 1 minute per person. The time may be extended at the discretion of the president or parliamentarian and may be limited if necessary to allow all persons who have signed to speakers list to speak. And again, this is simply for the purpose of timekeeping, which, as we know, can be extremely tricky. Next change will be section 3.2 F. We removed the portion that says all official actions shall be sent through the council's designated communication channel. Both the AA and the president shall have access to the account. The only reason why this was removed is because it appears at a different point in the bylaws, so it was just repetitive and it was not necessary to repeat it twice. Article 5.A. We simply included examples of the committees that may count as part of this point. So the council may create committees and define their membership as it may determine. And what the portion that was included but not limited to the Communications Committee, Legislative Committee, and Equity Committee. Yeah, this is just examples of things that we actually use. Section F, ad hoc committees, such as the Bylaws Committee, inter alia, may be formed as needed for short-term projects of less than 6 months and will dissolve after the project completion. The only portion that was added here is the example of the Bylaws Committee. Article 6, parent associations and community involvement. We tried to be a little bit more open about the language that we use, more inclusive. So the council, the parent teachers associations is now also defined as FTAs, family and teacher associations. So to read the whole paragraph, the council is in active partnership with parents in our schools, pursuant to New York State Education Law, Section 2590. The council takes note that there shall be a parent association, parent teachers association, and/or family teachers association in each school, and that the council, by the community superintendent and the principal of each school, shall have regular communication with OPAs, PTAs, and FTAs. Article 7, vacancies on the council. We added language to reflect that District 75 is now a seat in our council for the purposes of this article. So Section A says, in the event a council member other than District 75 member resigns, is removed, or becomes ineligible to serve, the council shall appoint a successor to fulfill the expired term within 60 days. Article 9, parliamentary authority. Section B, it initially was said the council may appoint. Now we're saying shall elect one of its members to serve as a parliamentarian to advise the council matters of procedure and matters pertaining to these bylaws. This is because we have mentioned that the parliamentarian is one of the officers that our CSC requires. There's a small change in Section A, which was to avoid a double negative. I'm going to read it really quick. These bylaws shall be by the governing instrument of the council, subject only to the applicable laws and regulations. All procedural questions not covered by this bylaw shall be governed by the Roberts Rules of Order, newly revised, to the extent they are consistent with applicable laws, regulations, or these bylaws. Article 10. Again, this repeated and expanded on the kinds of documents that were supposed to be printed out and provided to the newly elected body. As I mentioned earlier, we found that having a printed version of all the documents that occurred during a term was unnecessary and eliminated this portion as this transfer of records occurs digitally. So now Article 10 refers to the Code of Conduct. Section 1, Communications Protocol. All official communications shall be sent through the council's DOE issued email address. B, both the administrative assistant and the president shall have access to the account. C, the administrative assistant, under the supervision and direction of the president, shall inform all other council members promptly of any official notices and matters pertaining to the council's business. Section 2, Personal Conduct. A, each council member represents the council when conducting the council's business. Violation of this code will be met with disciplinary action as outlined, not excluding recommendation from the council for removal of the offending member of the council by the chancellor if the conduct rises to the standards outlined in New York State Education Law, Section 2590 L2B. I should mention before I continue that this section was adopted from the template provided by FACE. This is not our language. B, council members shall not engage in fights or physical, verbally aggressive behavior. Any transgressions from any member of the council against any other member of the council, the administrative assistant, parent, guests, or any other individual shall not be tolerated. Such conduct is grounds for suspension and possible recommendation for expulsion of the council to the chancellor. C, council members are subject to provisions on the chancellor's regulations D210 and shall not engage in any conduct that could be deemed harassment or discrimination of any kind. All alleged violations of chancellor's regulations D210 shall be referred to the equity compliance officer and reviewed in a manner prescribed by the regulation. D, council members shall not engage in conduct that serves to harass, intimidate, or threaten, including but not limited to frequent verbal abuse and unnecessary aggressive speech that serves to intimidate and cause others to have concern for the personal safety. E, council members shall not engage in dishonest behavior of any form. Such conduct, if proven, is grounds for suspension and possible expulsion in a roll call vote of 7 members and ratification by the chancellor. F, council members should adhere to the confidentiality of information shared as part of their role in the council. G, council members will follow the DOE Division of Human Resource rules and regulations governing non-pedagogical administrative employees as a guide provided by the Office of Support Services. Council members must be respectful, show no malice, indifference, or behave in a threatening manner towards the council's administrative assistant. H, council members shall undertake and participate in all training and professional development as required. Participating in anti-harassment and anti-bias training is recommended regarding Chancellor's Regulation D210. I, council members, shall submit all reports in a timely manner. All reports, for example, members' reimbursements, member individual performance reports, school visit reports, and committee reports should not be worked on or completed during any of the council's meetings. J, council members shall respect the council and the public's time with regard to planning and participating in meetings while understanding the emergencies that may occur. K, council members shall be mindful of others in the school buildings, especially when classes and after-school programs are in session, as well as respect school property, school staff, and the property of others. L, all official correspondence representing and on behalf of this council should be on the council's official letterhead and submitted via the council's official email account. M, council members shall notify the council if remarks they made outside of the meetings are to be published, and shall identify the publication and topic discussed. If a council member engages in public remarks that reflect their personal views outside of a meeting, said member shall include a disclaimer indicating that their views do not necessarily represent those of the council. I will mention that section L and M, I will have to confirm L, but M is something that this council came up with. It's not presented by FACE, and I'm not clear if L was presented by FACE or not. I'll have to check that. Oh, okay. Section 3, disciplinary actions. Again, this is by the Chancellor's regulations and also presented by FACE. Any violations to the code of conduct will be addressed appropriately, and discipline should coincide with the allegation's severity and or offense. Below are disciplinary actions listed in order of severity for
code of conduct violations that are to be carried out promptly by this council. 1, initial warning of violation. 2, recommendation for mediation. 3, formal censure by the council majority vote. 4, removal from leadership positions by the council majority vote. 5, suspension from the council by council majority vote. And 6, recommendation of the chancellor to the chancellor for expulsion by the council's majority vote. And that's the end of the changes.
Great job.
Somewhat.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the amendments to the bylaws?
Now there's an echo. Why is that? Okay. Okay, so the parliamentarian shall fulfill the following goals: protect the rights of individuals, minorities, and the majority. I think that there are some folks who don't like the word minorities. What, I didn't write that, but Vanessa, can we change that to marginalized groups? That's what you intended there, right? By minorities?
Not necessarily, it can be a minority opinion.
Like, okay, huh. The rights of individuals. So you mean minority in terms of the majority? Like you mean you're balanced, like you're, okay.
It's not necessarily.
It's not a racial or ethnic designation, it's literally, it's numbers, purely numbers. Okay. Okay, that's fine, if that's what, as long as we know what was meant.
I don't have anything. Ronaldo?
I have two questions. One is around, can I have the microphone?
Yep, go ahead. I
want to just add that maybe you might want to say minority views, majority views, or something like that, so that the next generation, like that's.
Yeah, that might be a good clarification. And also, the word video conferencing is spelled different ways throughout the documents, we just need to clean that.
Donaldo?
My question is about Article 4, Section 2, Order of Business at Calendar Meetings. And I'm noticing that.
Just give me a second to get that. 4, Section 2?
Right.
Okay.
number 8, public comment speaker session is the 8th item on the agenda for business or for calendar meetings. And we've also cut the time from 2 minutes a person to 1. And I guess I'm wondering, you know, having parents hang in there for 2 or 3 hours to make a 1-minute comment seems like a bridge too far. If we hope to have parents actively involved in meetings and have voice in the work of the council. So I was just kind of puzzled by it being one of the last items and wondering if it could be moved up a bit.
We actually discussed this too. One of the reasons why it's there is because we allow for parent comments after every point in the agenda. So this is more of a general space when all the agenda items have been covered. But just making that point that there are opportunities all throughout the meeting for parent participation. It's just not. There might be items that are not on our agenda that they might want to discuss. So we want to make sure that there's room for such participation as well. But I'm not sure if other people have comments on that.
And you could clarify by saying general public comment. But yeah, we do allow for, I mean, you could specify report of the superintendent with public comment, report of, well, we don't put the high school council on here, that's not part of our bylaws, but do we have program presentations, first public comment session, maybe added here. And then report of the superintendent, you can put in parentheses, second public comment session maybe added here. And then after resolutions, we should specify, you have to have a public comment after that.
Yeah, it's just public comment after this.
Yeah. In my view, it benefits the conversation to keep people on the topic, on task. Because if you open a meeting with public comments, you know what's gonna happen. You're going to lose the entire meeting. I mean, the PEP functions the same way. Yeah. For the same reason that you want to keep focus first. Right. Right. But I do think adding, like identifying that we have public comment after superintendent and after resolutions, program presentation, it's good to just have that in there.
My second question was around item M in Article 10, Section 2, personal conduct. And the question I'm asking is about the statement, council members shall notify the council if remarks they made outside of meetings are to be published and shall identify the publication and topic discussed. If a council member engages in public remarks that reflect their personal views outside of a meeting, said member shall include a disclaimer indicating that their views do not necessarily represent those of the council. And it follows with a range of disciplinary actions. So my one question was, where could we find this range of disciplinary actions in DOE or NYCPS literature?
I will get that information to you. I believe it's Chancellor's Regulations 6-10. In fact, subsection M is specifically based, in particular the second portion. When engaging in public remarks, you are bound by Chancellor's Regulation, or we are all bound by Chancellor's Regulations to inform the public whether those remarks are representative of the council or their personal views. So I can do a quick search and try to get that information to you, right?
I didn't see the range of disciplinary consequences in D210, but that doesn't mean they're not there. I'm looking at it on my phone. And I understand that council members always have the responsibility to use their title appropriately if they are a member of the council, whether elected or appointed, that they need to always clarify when they're speaking about their personal views versus the views of the council. I think my concern is with the first sentence about notifying the council if remarks made outside of meetings are to be published and shall identify the publication and topic discussed. I think it's an example of compelled speech. And I think it has a silencing effect on speech that may not be popular or acceptable or, I don't know, welcome by other people. And I think the First Amendment gives us the right to speak in any venue and freedom from compelled speech. And this is a classic example of compelled speech. I don't think that it would stand up if we ran it by the General Counsel of New York City Public Schools, which I think we should. And I'm deeply concerned about it. I was deeply concerned about it when it was presented as a requirement to me in December, as it had a chilling effect on my speech then. I found the manner in which it was presented to be abusive. And I'm disappointed that we are compelling speech of members here in these bylaws. It's not okay. If someone here speaks to any group of people and says, I'm giving my personal opinion, I have no obligation, nor does anyone on this council or any other council in the city have an obligation to notify any other human being and say, I spoke to this person called me, my comments may be reported. That is an unnecessary burden for any member of this democracy in which we live. I won't live under it. It won't stand up to scrutiny. It should not be on this paper. It's disappointing. Thank you.
Vanessa?
With regards to First Amendment, I think that the concern is well taken. I would maybe think that adding a portion saying that this refers to views that you publish or that may be published on behalf of the council, speaking for the council. I think the council has a right to know what is being said on its behalf. And the fact that you are advising on something that you may make public does not preclude you from going to the public and talking to the public. It's simply allowing other members of the council to know where one of its members stands on a particular issue, or not even a particular issue, it's a particular topic that's going to be discussed. That's all I have to say on that.
I did, just going off of this, I do think it's also very vague, right? And so it's just saying, making any remarks outside of this meeting, and we all have lives outside of this role and different jobs and professions, and many of us do speak to lots of people in different contexts and in different capacities. And so I think the vagueness of
this, there's so many people in my life who don't even understand the CEC or don't know what it is, and I've never even told them a part of it, right? So if I'm going and just speaking my views that are completely unrelated, but then could somehow, it's a slippery slope.
Right, so I think that the language could be refined to involve something that represents the views of the council to the public, which is the intent with the following sentence, but that first sentence could be refined.
Point of order.
Yeah.
I just moved that we write the general counsel and ask for clarification as to whether or not that's a lawful component of a democratically elected body in the city and state of New York. Language as is. Let's just get no need to edit it. Let's just find out if it's lawful.
That's fine. I'm also willing to just strike it and keep the second sentence, which is faces policy. The second sentence is 100% policy. I'm willing to strike the first sentence. Anything else?
I think striking the first sentence is a good solution.
Okay. All right. We'll strike the first sentence.
It's still vague though, even if it's faces language. That second now the only sentence.
What we can do is go to Chancellor's regulations. Let me just find that section exactly. It's modeled after that language.
Yeah.
And literally copy paste that, which I think is what was on, but I'll confirm.
There's a comment in the chat that is saying, I think the issue is that if someone identifies themselves as part of the council to the media, but then gives their personal opinion, they seem as if they are representing the council. So, I think the part that says that we need to make the point that we are not representing.
Right, that needs to be evident. That needs to be outspoken. This is my personal opinion.
I just think we need to be specific what we mean by public remarks. Is it public remarks related to the CEC role, related to issues related to the New York City Department of Education, public schools? I think that it needs to be more specific.
Let me just put comments on that section just to. So I'm just gonna put comments. I don't know if we want to refine this language later based on these comments or what we want to do.
So the other comment was, there's no interpretation of the First Amendment in which this is compelled speech. This doesn't regulate content. It is not even a difficult interpretation.
Well, as it's written right now, that's the face language.
Right. Which is still, I think, somewhat problematic, even though it's their language.
Right. I mean, if you want to add,
So what you
engages in public remarks regarding education.
That's
So many of us
completely.
work in education.
Like,
That would be-
we would just be constantly letting everyone know, anyone who does this professionally would constantly be it would place such an undue burden on anyone who does this professionally to communicate with the council that it would absolutely preclude any time to actually be effective in our personal lives, or it would have such a chilling effect on speech that it just would render our elected, like if we've been elected to serve, then like we get to have, everybody in this democracy gets to have a voice. And it would place an undue burden on people who do this and talk about it often, to have to share with everyone here everything that they have said. That is unnecessary.
That's not what it
That's not what it
says.
says. I've been doing this for 7 years and I've somehow managed to be able to separate my personal views from the views of the council at large based on the FACE's guidance here. We're not saying some article you wrote, obviously you wrote an article, that is your personal opinion. But if you go out there and you say, I'm CEC member Denalda Chumney, and you don't separate yourself from the views of the entire council, it becomes extremely confusing. Particularly in the press.
At what moment?
At what moment? What? Oh,
I'm sorry, Vanessa, did you? Go ahead.
I thought you had finished the question. I was seeking clarity. I didn't know that you were still finishing your question.
I'm just going to stand by my original question for the general counsel of the Department of Education about whether or not council members need to report back to other council members about any conversations they've had outside of meetings.
That, Denalda? You already took that out.
Has it been taken out?
It's been taken out. The first sentence was taken out.
And Tony, I just want to ask you to watch your tone. I don't have a computer in front of me, and I cannot see what is in the document and what is not in the document. Thank you for sharing that it has been stricken from the document. That's helpful to know. Thank you. If there are any further open questions, I'll defer just my own original position that if there are open questions about it, let's run it by DOE legal. And then I'll just take myself out of the conversation given the tone that I've just experienced. Thank you.
Isn't it the only position that you cannot speak on behalf? You have to always put a disclaimer when you speak.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Lauren, do you have any?
No, I think we already went down.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is, so Elton is pointing out, and maybe this would clarify the language, is if your name is not associated with the CEC in the media, then there's no issue, you can just talk. But if if you are listed as a CEC member, then the disclaimer must exist. That's much clearer than what's currently written. Yeah.
Okay. That's the intent. But,
Right.
That is.
So if you just have yourself as a private citizen or as your other job title that's not related to this, then speak freely. But if you are listed as a CEC member, then you have to have a disclaimer.
Is that the last comment that Elton put?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the
with-
second half of what he put.
Then somebody wrote, the problem with that is that the media can say you're a member of the CEC without permission.
That's correct.
That can also happen.
I mean, I think.
But
we
that
have
could
to-
happen anytime,
Yeah,
like, that
I
could-
mean, that's beyond
It
anyone's.
certainly could happen. It isn't within the realm of the plausible.
We cannot control what the media does or does not do, but within the extent that we can control, we are saying, look, I'm posting here my views and mine alone. I'm not representing council unless I have talked to my colleagues and I'm not imposing my opinion upon my colleagues in a public platform.
So are you adding something?
I'm gonna read it again to the council. I'm adding what was proposed by Jonathan just now, the second sentence and see if that's something that the council wants to comment on.
It is behind everybody on the screen.
Oh. So this is what it currently says on subsection M. If a council member engages in public remarks that reflect their personal views outside of a meeting, said member shall include a disclaimer indicating that their views do not necessarily represent those of the council. For clarification purposes, this has been added. A council member shall always represent the opinions stated as the member's own and do not necessarily represent those of the council. Is that what? Would take care of the concerns, or?
Is that different?
I think that's the exact same.
Yes, I think so too.
I think we have to, that is FACE's policy. I think we have to have it in our bylaws. I don't think there's any way to get around it. But if there's, I don't think there's a way to clarify what kind of speech is, I think once you get elected to this council, you're always sort of bound by this in some way. I don't think there's a way of parsing out which speech is which.
I mean, I think we could just say if a council member engages in public remarks when identifying as a council member.
But then we just said, oh, well, sometimes they can identify you.
Right, but that can happen even with this statement. Like
Yeah.
that's not on, like any media person could look up something about us, could attend a meeting, could whatever, look up our information and just write a story without us even knowing about it. That's out of our control. This is, I feel like this statement is about what is under our control.
So you like statement 2 as opposed to statement 1?
I think statement 1 actually is clear, but just saying that it's public remarks when you are identifying as a council member. Mm-hmm. If you're not identifying as a council member, it's moot. Because you're just your own personal self.
I'm more comfortable with 1 than 2 because it's what FACE is already putting out there. Anyway, I mean, this is not voting, we're not voting on this right now. We have to read this out in the next CEC calendar meeting. Vanessa, if you want to go back to FACE and have a conversation about this, but I'm inclined to just maintain their language. Since,
And just keep that first sentence.
yeah, they have already Vanessa, just verify that is from the template, that language is identical to the template?
Okay.
Somebody else, there is another comment.
We kind of covered what.
No. Okay, thanks. Can we move on to the next,
Thank you, Elton. It's like so confusing. It's good that he's a First Amendment scholar.
Yes.
So, we had candidate, 3 interviews, we had a series of them, a few weeks ago, and, we interviewed, Katina Rogers. Teresa Council did, I sent you all her, she withdrew her name. So we currently just have Katina Rogers, Jocelyn Bonadio de Freitas, Dana Ashley, and Yasmin Uday. And we also did have a candidate, Isabel Mendoza, who did not attend the interviews. Would you open the public comment to?
So we will now open it up for public comment about the candidates to fill the vacancy for the CEC seat. Are there any individuals joining us remotely who would like to make a comment? Yeah, Elton?
Oh, let me,
We good?
yes.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me some time. I've felt very lucky to be involved in CC interviews for this vacancy position in my capacity as co-president of the District 15 President's Council. And, you know, we talk about this a lot. We're in a time of depressed parent engagement. It has not recovered from pre-COVID levels for reasons that are entirely understandable. The pressures that our families are under, especially in a time of austerity cuts in the DOE. So to have all of these candidates come out and be of the quality that they were, the passion that was exhibited and their answers and comments during the interviews, there literally was not a single weak candidate in the group. And I don't think that can be said of application and interview processes like this really ever. So the fact that we have this core in District 15 of parents that are willing to put themselves out there, and watching all of you every day and being married to one of you, I completely understand just how much of yourself you put into this. So I just want to applaud everyone that put in for this vacant position, because it's really hard work. It's not particularly rewarding, and nobody's giving you a gold star at the end. You know, everything that you do for your kids and for everyone else's kids, and you carry that inside of you, and it means so much, and it makes me emotional to see moms and dads and caregivers that are so passionate about the work that we do. So I just want to thank everyone. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know all of you for just a few minutes at a time, and I wish all of you good luck.
Thank you, Elton.
Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment?
I mean, there's comments in the chat, but I mean, they're sort of like,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
And we will move to our sole person in person.
Okay.
If you would like to make a comment.
I just had a question for you guys as parents, but I feel like maybe it should wait till after the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, if you want to wait. It's gonna be a while. All right, so I want to propose, I want to move that we go into an executive session to discuss matters related to this vacancy. Members of the public are not going to be permitted to attend the executive session. When we come out of that executive session, we will vote to approve a new member. Let's see. Nancy, could you, I'm going to make the motion. Will anybody second the motion?
Second.
Leslie seconded. And then, do you want to roll call vote on going into executive session?
Okay.
I popped the names in there for you. Yes.
Council member, I'm sorry, Leslie, I'm gonna shoot through these fast. Leslie King.
Yes.
Vanessa Gonzalez Zuercher. Yeah. Nancy Cruz, yes. Donalda Chumney. Yes. Nancy Randall is not here. Hans Arietta. Yes. Lauren Barkin. Yes. Melvin Rashid is not here. Danny Goodell is not here. Jonathan Davis.
Yes.
Okay, no one else is here. I'll leave it to that test.
Okay. Yes. All right. Okay, so we have to, I think because there's so many devices, like I think we have to just go out there and do it because I have to mute this. unmuting the mic. Let's see. Welcome back, everybody. It's late, so we're just going to get right to the vote. I want, Jonathan is going to make the motion to approve a new CEC member, and then we're all going to vote. Motion.
So I make a motion to approve the vote for Yasmin Uday to fill the vacancy for the CEC 15 spot.
Okay. Somebody can second. And that was Nancy Cruz. Okay, call the roll, Nancy?
Antonia Ferraro,
Yes.
Leslie King,
Yes.
Vanessa Gonzalez Rocca. Yes. Nancy Cruz, yes. Donalda Chumney. Yes. Hans Agate.
Yes.
Lauren Barton. Yes. Jonathan Davis.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we have a new member, Yasmin Uday. I will be reaching out to her to onboard her to this council. Welcome, Yasmin. We are way over time. We will have to move all the rest of this meeting to our next business meeting, which will be May 14th, yes, May 14th at 131 Livingston Street. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, at 9:40 PM. Oh, my goodness. Wow, thank you, everybody, and good evening. We will see you in May.
Thank you, interpretation. You're dismissed.